to this feasibility study, the public engagement part of it, it was directly, it was going to be duplicated effort if the town would have funded the Conservancy's proposal at $50,000 and then had a separate one to basically do the same steps. So we simply moved that over, and it, you know, again, Conservancy representatives on the subcommittee were present for this discussion about kind of mirroring, you know, or combining these two proposals into one so that we can get this project going. And they're supportive of that.
So that's your presentation. I mean, I'm certainly not implying at all to we fund two of them, but that's your presentation that this is a joint proposal between the Conservancy and the town.
Well, it's not a joint proposal from the Conservancy. It is a town-funded, we're asking for the town to fund this proposal. The town is taking the lead on most everything when it comes to the marsh. This is no exception.
Okay.
Well, I have a motion, please. I'm submitting a motion to postpone approval of the ELCO proposal until we obtain the Conservancy's agreement to perform the proposed mitigation work at the Kiowa Island Bridge location.
Well,
What form of agreement?
Yeah, we're not mitigating.
This proposal is not to do any work other than do the study. So
Change to the study, then.
So is there a second to Russ's motion? Hearing no second,
not drafted,
I think we'd need to maybe readdress what, so let me just ask a question.
Please do.
Is what you're looking for is a way to delay this until we have some concrete evidence that the Conservancy is fully on board with doing this study? Is that what you're,
Yes. At a minimum.
So let me ask a question then. If what Ms. Elko is proposing is a report that'll have two conceptual designs gathered from the site assessment and stakeholder engagement as requested by the town of Kiowa Island and the Marsh Management Subcommittee, of which the Conservancy is a part, don't we have that?
I don't think we do. I don't see there any agreement that the Conservancy is going to buy into whatever we propose to do at the bridge, because they do have this easement.
Well, I mean,
I
I
want to
don't,
make sure before
I
we
don't
spend
think
money.
I don't think they have to agree at this juncture.
But why
Because,
should we spend the money before we know they're not going to argue and combat us?
Have you been able to ask Ms. Wyndham, who's here for the Conservancy, ask her, and that way we would know one way or the other?
Well, could I just add one more thing? I mean, there's nothing for even the Conservancy to approve or deny at this point, right? The point of this is to understand the conditions at that site. We have a pretty good idea, but we're bringing in a third party who's objective to say, okay, these are the issues, okay? We want to make some changes here. Our number one priority is to protect the marsh in that area, but maintain some level of public access, okay? How we do that, we don't know. And that's why this plan needs to happen, so that we can engage with all the stakeholders, including the Conservancy, the partners, KICA, the greater public, which likely includes Lower Johns Island, other groups that utilize this area. We also have to understand what's even feasible there. We have to start to look at, could you even permit a structure there? We don't know that yet. And so until we do this, we can't plan a path forward.
Jim, one clarifying question. I think it addresses a little bit what Russ was getting into. You alluded to that the Conservancy was otherwise going to or had made a proposal to the town for a $50,000 project.
Correct.
Was that formally done, or were they simply had that discussion about doing that occur?
They brought a proposal to the environmental committee,
Okay.
Which was discussed within the environmental committee. And out of that discussion, this is kind of when we realized there was some overlap between what we were trying to do through this proposal and what they were trying to do. So their $50,000 proposal was basically going to kind of do what ours is going to do. It was going to have public engagement. It was going to come up with a conceptual plan and a process to move forward with permitting. It wasn't going to do any marsh restoration.
So in your view, what you're saying is this proposal encompasses everything that the Conservancy was requesting, but also does more than that.
Not everything in the Conservancy
Can I interject
proposal.
here,
I'll let-
Jim?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think we need to look at this as being two different projects that are having a very strong boundary or border, to each other. I think the Conservancy's proposal is really focused on restoring the marsh at that critical, connection between the island, the bridge, John's Island, etc. That's one part. The other part is where I think the town is coming from, saying we have an obligation to provide some kind of access to that area in a far more restricted manner by, for example, not allowing any watercraft, kayaks in particular, but allowing some kind of ability for the greater community to enjoy this location. And greater community does include people from Seabrook and from John's Island predominantly. This whole bridge area is a prime spot for people that are painting, for people that are taking pictures of the sunset, etc. So there's a little bit of certainly a conflict of interest between the Conservancy trying to protect this entire area and us trying to allow at least some access to the community for enjoyment by avoiding that the marsh further degrades. So, Jim, my understanding then after the environmental committee meeting, the discussions we had also with the Conservancy, is that now it is very clear, hopefully, but that's my question, what the Conservancy project is covering and what the ELCO project is covering in terms of no overlap or double work, I should say. Overlap is maybe the wrong word, double work, but clearly telling us and then also telling the Conservancy what we should do at this point so that the Conservancy can tell us if they agree, if they want to mitigate, or if they not allow anything to happen at that intersection, which means we basically have to close down the area.
See, Jim, just one little small point. Actually, it's not a small point, but under the analysis, item number 3 is referring to the addition of an overlook and or a fishing pier. I would be astonished if the Conservancy would allow some, or I shouldn't say allow, would be on board with something like that. I would be astonished. And I think they need to become a partner or a team member of some sort, because I don't see that kind of work being something that they would approve or want to see.
I understand that, and I've heard the same from the Conservancy. But again, until we do this, we don't know what's even feasible, what it might look like, right? But if what we're trying to do is protect the marsh and maintain some level of public access.
Well, and that's
actually-
all, and that's all
hold on.
good.
So
But take
the
out,
alternative,
but take out the overlook and fishing pier then.
those were recommendations from the Marsh Management Committee.
Well,
okay?
was the
So
but,
those were
not to
things to
parse the words,
investigate.
but if the recommendation was maintain passive access to the marsh and waterway, period. Because likely through an overlook and/or fishing pier, I don't know what that looks like. Is that an overlook hanging off the side of the bridge or an overlook that's down by the edge of the water? But the key, the objective was maintain passive access to the marsh and waterway. So again, this study that we're being asked to recommend funding for would end up telling us what it would likely be. They might not. So I guess my point is I think we have kind of a chicken or the egg sort of thing here. In order to get some documented evidence of what is feasible, possible, desirable at that location, we have to do a study. And that's what I think you're asking here is $31,000. You were asking us to recommend to town council, they spend $31,000 to do that study. And after having done that study, we can say, well, what does the Conservancy think of this? Or did they participate? Or whatever we want to ask, but we have to your point, we have to get the study done first before we have kind of a jumping off point, if you will.
Sure. But I mean,
And also, if I could just chime in.
Sure.
Just remember, 5 members here is Ways and Means. Just spending, a lot of the discussion, debate you guys are doing is normally at town council level.
Exactly, we're just
And then,
recommending
and
to
then
spend the money.
also, if you recommend to spend the money to town council and town council has this debate and they decide to do it, ultimately, nothing is spent or done because it's come back to Ways and Means or council if it requires spending or approval of anything. Almost similar to the feasibility study of the Arts Performing Center. Nothing can happen, not unless you all approve dollars and actually the project.
Right.
But just for this discussion, just a lot of the conversation that you guys are having is normally a town council discussion, not a Ways and Means discussion.
I understand what you're saying. I guess my position here is a lot more basic. Like, I'm not for spending the money on a study that I think very highly will not be agreeable to the Conservancy.
But as a Ways and Means Committee member,
Right.
that's not your purview.
You're just looking at
But
spending.
then I can't approve the money then.
You're just
because-
looking at making a recommendation about spending the money. Once it comes, I know it's kind of odd, just think about normally, you would not, say you wouldn't be on town or Ways and Means, because normally you don't have full council on Ways and Means. So if it's only 3 of you, then they'll be making recommendation to town council to spend the money. Then town council has to debate what you're discussing. They should say then, at that debate, we feel like we cannot support
I understand what you're
project.
saying, but it's very difficult and wrong for me to approve something that I think is going to be not agreed to by
I
the
agree.
Conservancy.
Then-
That's just a
then yeah,
waste of
yeah.
money.
Then we
And
can
apart from the
make-
substance, I would agree with Russ that I don't quite get the concept is you're only approving the money, but you don't have a vote, say in approving the money as to what the money's going to be used for.
We're actually just making a recommendation. You're not really approving
Well,
the
okay,
dollars.
but even, I mean, I would think in making a recommendation to spend the money, we would be wanting to have some clarity about whether that money, what it was being used for and whether it was being used appropriately. It seems to me to be part of a Ways and Means discussion, not just a town council discussion.
Well, and I think it is pretty clear on what the study is going to do. It's going to develop a final report and up to 2 conceptual designs informed by information gathered from site assessment and stakeholder engagement as requested by the town of Kiowa Island and the Marsh Management Subcommittee. And then they're going to hold scoping meetings with key stakeholders of Kiowa entities, conduct an environmental review, so forth and so on. So it's very clear on what they're going to do in this study. And I guess the only part that is missing, to Russ's point, is specifically including by name the Kiowa Conservancy.
Well, in addition, I keep going back to the same point, is I understand it's telling you chapter and verse, but why would we consider doing a feasibility study on a fishing pier that we know?
Not doing a feasibility study
Sure we
on a
are.
fishing pier. We're doing
Sure
a
we are.
feasibility study on maintaining passive access to the marsh and waterway.
Likely through an overlook or a fishing pier.
Likely through chartered boats. I mean, you have to be careful because we're not saying we want to spend the money on this item. We want to say we want to take a look at how do we maintain passive access to the marsh and waterway. For example, a fishing pier.
That is giving an intimation to the consultant, that's what we would like to see.
I don't
But
think
those-
it is.
I think those words
Not
should
if you
be-
have a consultant that's worth their salt, it's not.
We're hinting to him what we want.
I don't think so.
So again, those 5 items came out of this comprehensive marsh management work group. It has representatives from every entity on the island. The Conservancy, the partners, the ARB, KICA, everyone. The consensus of that group was that these are the things that we would like to investigate, right?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay, can I,
So seems like we're getting caught up on some sort of wooden structure into the marsh. That is something that group said might be a good thing to do. It gets people out of the marsh. It still allows them to recreate, to paint, to fish, to crab without destroying the marsh, right? That was what they thought would be a good idea. The consultant's job is to say, okay, we hear that. Now we're going to look at what are the conditions at the site? What are the permitting issues? We've already kind of started to deal with the easement itself through Joe's opinion. So their job, Nicole's job, just like when we did the marsh management plan, right, is to come up with a plan the community at large supports that tries to meet the goals, desires of our marsh management work group. Tell us if
Jim,
it can work.
No, I understand.
And then we move forward if we decide to.
Part of the challenge I have is that unfortunately, I'm an engineer, I have some experience with this kind of stuff. And I know when you put piers in and docks into the water, it impacts the water flow and it creates shade where vegetation doesn't grow. So this whole thing is just rather,
But this is not proposing that we build a pier. This is proposing that someone helps us understand what are the possibilities at this location.
And,
Michael?
and maybe can I interject here again for a second, Russ? At least the discussion we had with me in the room was that there are a multitude of different options how safe access to that area can be provided. And it does not mean automatically that there are piles being put into the ground and a deck being established. There are various other things we talked about in the meeting, how people can gather and enjoy the sunset. So I don't necessarily think that, you know, the consultant is guided in a certain direction. The task of the consultant is to provide us with several different options, you know, how we could provide a safe, environmentally safe, but also, you know, human being safe kind of way of enjoying this location for the wider community. I don't think that there's anything yet being said that we will have, you know, piles in the ground. That's my first comment. But
is the
let me
consultant
get
going to
back
consider the
to my
easement?
question, Jim, because you haven't answered that. Are these two projects that are proposed, the one focusing from the Conservancy on marsh recovery in that entire area, especially towards the east of the bridge, and this project, are they now aligned and the overlap that existed priorly have been clarified so that we are not paying for the same thing twice? Question.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Second question, is somebody from the Conservancy in the room?
Yes.
Yes.
Could we ask this person, I cannot see, I think it's Donna, but I'm not 100% sure, you know, tell us what the Conservancy thinks about this particular project.
Yes. What do you think about this proposal?
Good morning, gentlemen. On behalf of the Conservancy, thank you for allowing us to have some comments today. The meeting in which it was decided to move this project as a joint project has been informed to me. I was not in the meeting. I had 2 staff members there, but was going to be tabled because attorneys needed to be brought in to determine how the easement would be read before this proposal would be presented. We did not get any information about an opinion from an attorney. No one reached out to the Conservancy about that. We have not had legal counsel look at it to determine, compared to what your attorney has said, how it impacts. I would just ask that this be tabled until we can have further discussion.
So do we have a motion that we can vote on here?
Well, can I just add one thing? So there is nothing in this proposal that could violate the easement or has anything to do with what's allowed in the easement, right? This is figuring out what's feasible at the site, right? I mean,
Jim, I'm going to support tabling it. I have the utmost confidence in Nicole, and I think she would do an excellent job because I think she's quite vested in our whole marsh management business. Make sure the two attorney groups are satisfied that if whatever would come out of her report could conceivably be done. And then bring it back here and we'll support it. So
Can we let Joe comment? Because
wait, we need to move on. Do you have a motion that you want to put forth then? That we
Well-
table this?
Well, we asked Donna to make a
I mean,
comment. She made an honest comment.
Yeah.
Her attorney hasn't had a chance to look at it. Let him look at it. I mean, why?
Exactly. So
What's the
let's
difference
put a
between doing it in
motion
July or
forward
August?
that we are tabling the topic, that we have the attorneys look at this, which seems to have been done at least to a great extent. Please have the Conservancy included and give us, a clear recommendation if we should move forward with this or within which boundaries this project should move forward.
So what is your motion? That was a whole lot there.
Table
Table it.
Table it until we have a clear feedback from the Conservancy if they can support the project under certain conditions.
Is there a second for that?
I would second that.
Any more discussion?
When you table, there's not debatable. You have a motion, a second, call for the vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
What did we just do?
We
What did
tabled it,
Oh,
until the Conservancy can,
And just one suggestion, to the extent, Jim, you do come back and there is an agreement between you and the Conservancy, I would suggest perhaps in the covering memo, just delete the language likely through an overlook or an deficient appear.
fair enough.
And leave it at that.
okay. I have nothing to add in the chairman's report. So Dorota, you want to talk about your treasurer's report?
Yes.
Once again, we're almost out of time when you get to talk. We actually are out of time, but
Yes. Yeah, the sheet.
Can we do it then?
Yes. Thank you. So we just finished the fiscal year 2023, and the accounting staff is working on closing the year. This report that I prepared this is not the final report. And I just want to emphasize that. So the numbers that are final are actually highlighted in the first column. So they are already, they will not change. But the rest, we're still in the process of accruing. And you'll see the final report pretty much with the audit report. But through what I have through end of June, our revenues were about 14.9 million, which is about 4% more, 4% less than last year, and 123% of the budget, or 22% over the budget. And mostly, pretty much all the revenue sources are going to exceed our budget. But the main factor is the interest revenue. As far as the expenditures, we are at 9.8 million, which is about 1% or 80 higher than last fiscal year, and about 85% of total budgeted for this year. Pretty much the expenditures are within line, except for a couple of line items that I've been pretty much reporting every month that are going to be over the budget. And this is the professional services, consultants, maintenance cost, and the capital outlay, in particular the Kestrel Court project. That's pretty much a summary. And if you have any questions, any details, I'll be happy to answer.
I only have one question.
Yes, sir.
I don't know if it's for you, Dorota, or for Stephanie. Are we now certain that all the invoices have come in and being registered for all the work that was done by Joe and Mr. Apple for development agreements and Blue Heron Pond Road, etc.? So is this really the final number, or are there still other invoices coming in?
There is still some more coming in. The only final in the expenditures are pretty much insurance, because we pay them beginning of the year. The rest we still accruing. We're gonna close.
No, I'm only talking about professional services, in particular as it relates to legal services.
So no,
No, right now, I'm still awaiting, I believe, maybe one or two more invoices from Mr. Wassapel.
Okay.
and I think
So-
just June invoice,
So the
right?
$230,000 we spent in the last fiscal year on legal services is not really the complete picture.
That's correct.
Was this a yes?
Yes, that's correct. It's not
Okay,
complete
thank you.
picture. Mhm.
Okay, thank you. Just all I wanted to know.
Any other questions? No? Thank you.
Thank you. So we have citizens' comments. Okay, committee members' comments. Mr. Mayor?
None.
Russ?
None, thank you.
Brad? Michael?
Nothing to add, thank you.
Okay. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.